I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David Walker. So how you doing?
I am incredible. How are you, sir?
Man, I am so, I'm doing well. I have nothing to complain about. All is going well, and I'm just glad to be here with you.
Yes, sir. Hey, I'm honored to be on Beyond the Culture. Dr. Walker, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. It is absolute honor to be here. So thank you so much.
And so, as I do, let me start off by giving you your official introduction. Today on the show on Beyond the Culture, I have my guest, Pastor Torrey Montgomery. Torrey Montgomery has been recognized for over a decade as a leader of leaders. He has focused on the science of getting unstuck, high capacity leadership, and introducing people to radical love of God. Torrey's dynamic approach has been proven to inspire organizations, companies, and individuals to reach maximum potential. He has traveled extensively around the world and has spoken on stages for government officials, churches, police departments, schools, and major corporations. Torrey is an agent of change that inspires leadership at the highest level by helping them and walk into their next. He's an author, and we'll talk a little bit about a couple of books that he's written. One, he has written a book called Lord, Teach Me How to Fish, Breaking the Spirit of Poverty Off of Your Life. And he has a new book coming out this summer. It's entitled Go Next, Shifting from Your Now to Your Next in Life, Business, and Relationship. So I'm super excited to have on the show today my guest, Pastor Torrey Montgomery. Welcome, Pastor Montgomery.
Thank you. Again, I want to say again how honored I am to be a part and on the show. I've had a chance to check out several of your podcasts, the Beyond the Culture shows, and everyone is inspiring. Every one of them is empowering. So again, to get the opportunity to be a part of the show, part of the movement is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm excited about it. Excited about the conversation.
And I am excited about having you on the show today because we are going to have a great conversation. There's a lot of things that's going on in our world, and I just want to hit on some topics because you're a man of God, and so we're just going to just have conversation about some important things today. But I want to start with your background and just kind of give us a little bit about the background, where you're from, where you grew up, and all those great things that that people share with us about where they come from.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm from Oklahoma. Actually a small town called Duncan, Oklahoma. So I was born and raised in Oklahoma, never lived anywhere else. I've had the privilege to travel a lot of places, but been in Oklahoma all my life. Born preacher's kid, preacher's family, actually. Like my dad was a pastor, my grandfather, uncles, aunties, cousins, you name it. Our family reunion is like a church conference, actually. So, yeah. So we are a very churched family, if you will, and been doing it all my life. I tell people I was pretty much born in a pew, and so. But I'm a martial artist. Been doing martial arts all my life as well, since I was 5 years old. So that's been a part of my life, doing the martial arts. So that's really who I am. I musician as well. So you see the keyboard back there.
Yeah.
So I play the keyboard. That's actually where I started in the church world. I was a musician first, playing for my dad's church, and it just kind of expanded from there. So that's how it works.
And as you say that, I did have that down here as one of the questions I was going to ask you, because it said that you have been in some capacity of ministry practically all of your life.
Yeah.
You've been, like you said, a church musician at your dad's church. I found out you were a youth pastor. You've done several music projects over the years. I think you had something that was at the Potter's House back in the day. Mm-hmm. So you've been in church all of your life. It's your experience, and I guess it was something that's who you are. Would you say that?
I would, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely who I am. It's ingrained in me. So, becoming a pastor was almost inevitable, even though I didn't want to. I guess it
Right.
was the last thing I wanted. I wanted to go on tour on the keyboard and play for Kirk Franklin or somebody, but God didn't have it that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you are a pastor in Oklahoma City, and the name of your church is Connection Church.
Yes.
You're currently the pastor of Connection Church. So talk a little about the church, and then I want to talk a little bit about how has it been? Because we went through a whole year of COVID, the experience of dealing with COVID, and how has it been coming out of that experience of having to pastor in the midst of a pandemic? So talk about the church a little bit, and then let's talk about that experience of being a pandemic pastor.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, like I said, I really didn't want to preach. Growing up, everyone always told me, you're going to be a pastor, you're going to be a preacher because your dad's a preacher, your grandfather, everybody. My mission in life at the time growing up was to be a musician. Like I said, a producer. I wanted to travel, I wanted to tour. And so it never, and the truth is, I was really a quiet person as well. So it made no sense for me to be a pastor. I was very introverted growing up, still somewhat introverted now. So it made no sense for me to do that. I was, when I moved to Oklahoma City from Duncan, which is about an hour and a half away. When I moved out of the house, I moved to Oklahoma City, and I started playing for a church and leading worship as a worship leader for a church out in Oklahoma City. And one Sunday morning, I was at the church. It was about 8 a.m. in the morning. I got there early on time, got on the keyboard, played, just kind of had my own time with God and worship. And my pastor at the time came out, and he looked at me and he pointed to me. He said, "It's on you today." I said, "What do you mean? What's on me today?" He said, "It's on you." He said, "God said you got the word today." I'm like, "What word? What are you talking about?" And so he said, "Yeah." And I ran in his office to find out what was going on. He said, "Yeah." He said, "You're preaching today." And this is literally how I preached my first sermon. He
Wow.
said, "You're preaching." So I didn't know anything but to go get some boards, because I was a martial artist. I went and got some boards, and I did a sermon about breakthrough, and I broke those boards while I was preaching. So that was my
Wow.
first message. Yeah. But what that did, though, is that sparked something in me that I didn't know existed. And that was a desire to empower people through my voice and through
Mm.
speaking. And that's how the journey began for me to come into the place of pastoring. And as I went through the different stages of, youth pastor and different things like that, what happened was I started this Bible study.
Okay.
And the Bible study was just for college kids. It was a Tuesday night Bible study for college kids. I started in my apartment. So the apartment was about 3 people coming. That grew to about 15 people in an apartment.
Wow.
And so I almost got kicked out of the apartment because we got loud, real charismatic and all
Sure.
that. Which then we moved to what's called the Metro Tech, which is kind of a technology center. They let us rent out space there. We outgrew that space. Became crazy crowds coming and all this stuff. From that point, I said, you know what? This might be a church. No one, because there was a lot of college kids. No
Hmm.
one really had a church home. And
Right.
so I always knew I wanted to empower people. I wanted to turn followers into leaders and really empower people to be who they're created to be. And so that's when the church was birthed out of that. It was called at the time Greater Kingdom Works International, because my whole message was centered around the kingdom of God. That was my whole theme. And later on, we transitioned to become Connection Church. But it was a church started with a group of young people that were hungry for change, hungry for God, and wanted to see something radical happen in our city. And that's how the church started. So 13 years later, we're still around. God has been good. We've been able to travel all around the world and teach leaders and things like that. We're in another transition right now that we'll be announcing here pretty soon, but it's been really great. It's been a really great time. So yeah. And in terms of, coming out into the pandemic, I think the pandemic for me, and I think not just me, but for everyone who had the church, a business, whatever, it was a test of your leadership. For us, it tested, where do you stand as a leader when something unexpected happens, because no one was expecting this. As a matter of fact, our church, the Sunday before the pandemic, we had our record-breaking attendance.
Wow.
Like, it was the biggest attendance that we had almost ever, right? The church was rapidly growing, things were happening, and then the world shut down. The world shut down. We were excited about the growth. We were like, here we go, let's go. We've been waiting on, some movement like this, and the world shut down. So in that moment, we had to make some quick shifts, some quick pivots to be able to sustain in the midst of all of the chaos. So, we went from having a service to no longer being able to come to service. How do we do this? How do we shift to online? We were doing online, but now you had to take online to the next level.
Right.
And you had to be able to engage people, connect with people online. So that whole system had to change. So it was great, though, on one end, because we actually tripled in our finances. Our viewers like doubled and tripled in how many weekly viewers we had. And it became really one of the greatest seasons of our church.
Wow.
We expanded like crazy during a time when nobody was coming. And so
that's crazy.
It is crazy.
You expanded the church while nobody was coming.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That is powerful. My. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's what happened. It literally, we expanded when no one was coming. And we went, I think we went the first 6 months, really kind of, for 4 months, really having no one there. Then we started going, we'll bring, 10 people can come. Okay, now we got the 50 and that type of thing. And we just opened it all the way up from that point. So we were kind of open before the whole world opened up. We did a lot of precautions in terms of putting air purifiers in the building, medical sanitation. I mean, we did everything we could to make it safe in the building. And we still did great. We expanded, people started showing up again. And it was amazing what happened. Now, coming out of the pandemic, I think what happened in the pandemic also is because in terms of having people there, that portion of it decreased, the online increased, but it also gave us time to think.
Okay.
During that time, we could think and figure out, what exactly is it that we're called to do? What exactly is our purpose? Because I've learned this, that we live in seasons, moments, and opportunities. There's always a season that we go through. There's always moments that show up. You know about the defining moments, those defining moments that show up. And then there are the opportunities that come up. And in this time, we were able to think about the season that we're in. And for us, we knew that the season of Connection Church, the season of that era that we had, was coming to some sort of an end. And it's crazy because it wasn't coming to an end in terms of our church was going downhill. Like I said, we were expanding. And in the midst of the expansion, we felt like the season is coming to an end. And I think for the pandemic, that's really what it did for us. It gave us 12 months to really reconsider and rethink everything that we were doing.
And to figure things out. So now that the pandemic is decreasing and, the country is opening back up, not totally, but in certain spaces. Of course, we just heard the CDC say that if you've been fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask anymore. You don't have to social distance. But I want to ask about the church, and where do you see the church going forward? Because like you said, all we knew was to come to the building. Mm-hmm. There was, as you said, some initial online presence, and then you had to go fully online. But now that the pandemic is over, so to speak, some churches are opening up again. But the question is, do you see the church coming back as it was in the larger proportions? Or what do you see, from your perspective, as how we will do church going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, during the pandemic, it made us reevaluate. I think it made the church look at how we did church
Okay.
and what was really important when it comes to church. Because a lot of the stuff that we did, the lights, the cameras, the action, the deal, we found out that that wasn't the most valuable and important thing anymore. It was really making real connection with people is what it is. So as far as what's changing, or what I believe is going to be the shift, is that we have to become hybrid now.
Okay.
So we can't focus on just getting people there. We got to figure out how to get to where people are,
Okay.
because there's a lot of people now that are saying, again, I don't necessarily need to be in a building.
Mm,
I don't necessarily need to go. If
right.
I can get this online, I'm good to go. There are some people that want to come back to the building. They're excited to get back around people, but we have to become hybrid. If we're not hybrid, then we're not going to win in this next wave. The world is gone digital. Everything in the world is digital now. Everything. So we have to be able, as a church, to reach in multiple facets and multiple spheres, or we'll lose big time in this season. I believe the church is going to thrive no matter what. You know, the
Right.
gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. The
Right.
church is going to thrive no matter what. But we have to be able to break down what we consider this has to be done,
Hmm.
to now let's expand and see how can we reach more people. How can we do this at a greater level and be hybrid?
It's definitely going to redefine forsake not the gathering of ourselves together,
Yeah.
because the traditional mindset of that gathering together was always coming to the building. We
Hmm.
had to be there. You know, if you didn't come to church, you were, criticized. And why have you haven't been here in 2, 3 weeks? And of course, we're not going to talk about the people who only come up during Easter.
You're right. Yes.
But you're going to have to redefine it in order to continue to, win souls.
Yes.
And so I definitely like your outlook, understanding that we're in the era of the hybrid. You got hybrid cars, you got hybrid
Right.
learning, you know what I'm saying? And that
Yeah.
is the only way, because I am convinced in my mind that some people who attended the building on a regular basis will not return to the building.
Right.
They will, and if you don't provide that online platform, they will get it somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So you're going to have to, get out there and
Absolutely.
compete. So,
And
so yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, no, I was gonna say, you think about this. Our church, the the biggest number we had in our church was maybe about 200 at one time.
Okay.
Okay. During the pandemic, on some Sundays we reached 1,000 to 2,000 people
Wow.
online.
Online.
So we
Sure.
went from a what would be considered a small church to
Right.
almost a mega church
Wow.
in like a matter of weeks,
Uh-huh.
just by our online reach. And so I think that's what pastors and leaders are going to have to look at, is that you can't just limit that to, if you don't come to the building, then you're not a part of our church. No, you can't do that. We have to expand, because you're missing so many more people that you could reach.
Now you are also the founder of Go Next Leadership Consulting.
Yes.
And there as I said in your bio, you work with businesses and organizations to help them to go to the next level. I remember reading somewhere where your motto, and I now see it's a part of your book, shift from your now to your next.
Hmm.
So tell us about that consulting business that you have, Go Next Level Leadership, and what type of impact do you think you're having?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this was birthed out of me going to a really tough financial time in my life. And so I hit a financial wall. My wife and I, we were doing really great, the great middle class life, everything. We had the cars, the Range Rovers, the Hummers, the whole deal. My wife was working
Wow.
a great job. I was doing my thing, and we were doing really good. We hit this financial wall and just crashed. It was a bad season for us financially, which led me to network marketing.
Okay.
Okay, so I went to network marketing. I was doing a network marketing company, and we started doing great with that company, opening up some nutrition stores and moving up the ranks in that company. But what I realized is that for us, it wasn't about the company. It was about how God was positioning us to expand our range of reach. And so during that time with the network marketing company, one of the leaders heard me speak, and he was like, "Hey, I want you to come speak at one of our events." And I was one of the lower guys in the company. And he was like, "Hey, I want you to come be one of the main speakers in the event." And I was like, "Really?" And yeah, so I went on stage and spoke. And then from that, it went to speaking at a corporate event.
Okay.
And I was like, wow. So I'm speaking, got all these high, achievers in the company. Then you got me speaking as one of the main speakers on the event. But what I realized is that what I have learned throughout the years as a martial artist, as a pastor, all the experience, that it was good for outside of the church, that companies, business owners, those people in that sphere could benefit from the information, the knowledge, and everything that I had. So from that point, I said, you know what? I think I can do this as a business and actually go and speak to corporations and businesses. And that's how Go Next was birthed. I noticed that I had did a whole series at church called Go Next at my church 3 years ago, as a matter of fact. And so everything birthed out of that series. People were stuck, businesses were stuck. I was like, I can help you get unstuck by helping you shift your mindset and shift your leadership, and that gets your company moving forward. And so from that, I've had the opportunity to speak for, plumbing companies, just all kinds of companies. I flew out to North Carolina and did a whole plumbing company.
Hold on, let me just interject right here. What a great message for a plumbing company. Get unstuck, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we've done that. There's a home care company out in Atlanta. I go speak for them every year. Great conference, empowerment conference, and just all kinds of different companies, different people, different churches, individuals. Sometimes I come and I'll consult them on the next level of their life. And so the main impact, when you talk about impact, the main impact, my focus is to help people come into what I call full expression.
Okay.
So that means that you really become everything you're designed to become. You unlock that potential so that you're designed to unlock. And that's really what my whole mission and focus is with the company.
That sounds awesome. I mean, and just to think that you started out, as you said, as at a low level in the company, but they saw your impact from how you presented, the products and the work, and now you're into public speaking and you're doing a great job with that. But I also noticed you said 3 different times, and I hear very well under these, but 3 different times you brought up the subject of martial arts.
Yes.
And when I was doing my research, I found out that you have had 3 successful martial arts schools.
Yes.
And that you hold, and I don't know whether if you've increased the number, but it said you hold the rank of 5th degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Yes, sir.
And it says you hold several championship titles, both locally and nationally. And as a matter of fact, I've seen a lot of your video presentations of you with your Taekwondo and so on and so forth. And so I wanted to ask you this question because you're a pastor, which means you're a spiritual leader, and then you are this Taekwondo expert. I want to ask you, is there a connection between the body and the spirit? And if there is, how are you using it with that particular skill you have? How are you connecting it? Because that's a body skill, but how are you connecting it with spiritual development? Because that seems that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's an incredible question, because here's the thing, they parallel.
Okay.
Martial arts and ministry, for me, they parallel. You can't, I can't separate them, because in martial arts, the more than anything, it was mindset. You learn more mindset than anything. So when it came down to breaking bricks, breaking boards, whatever it is, it was all a mindset thing. We have in our Taekwondo system, we have what we call the Tennis of Taekwondo, which parallel really with a lot of spiritual concepts. One is honesty, of course, being true to yourself, knowing your true identity, integrity, doing the right thing, even when no one is watching, self-control. So we always do this. We always say, my mind controls my body. So when we in our class, we'll say self-control. My mind controls my body.
Mm,
Self-control, perseverance, being able to persevere through no matter what happens, no matter what adversity comes, so we can persevere. All these are parallels. And the last one that we use is a indomitable spirit. So indomitable spirit means, the way we say it is, I may lose the fight, but I'll never lose my will to fight.
mm,
And so that is the 5 tenets of Taekwondo, which again are parallel with a lot of principles that come straight out of the Bible. And so these two, for me, they work together. They work together leadership wise. They work together. Martial arts and ministry have a lot of similarities in terms of how leadership works, how people advance, overcoming obstacles, going through tests. I mean, they just parallel and they work together. So a lot of my messages derive from what I learned in martial arts, and I just
right.
tied into a biblical concept. So yeah, they go together, for me, they can't be separated.
Uh-huh.
So yeah,
And I think that is so powerful. And I love the part where you said that you have to discipline your mind, because if you fail to discipline your mind, then you fail to control your body. You
yeah,
you fail to control what you do, because our human nature, we have these earthly and human desires and lusts, and we'll go somewhere. The body will go somewhere unless you discipline it, right?
yeah, absolutely.
And the
Hmm.
only place you can discipline that is with your mind. So I mean, that's just great, because I think that it's important, and I'm glad to see that as a clergyman and a spiritual leader, you really do understand the impact of the having a well-developed body and a well-developed mind, and to help you to get to where God wants you to be spiritually.
Hmm.
And you tie
'Cause
that
I
in.
believe that you got to be, when it comes down to just the body itself. If you really want to walk out purpose, have being healthy in your body, just that simple thing is huge for really living out purpose.
Okay.
Because the thing is, while you're trying to live and do your mission and do your calling, do your anointing, all this stuff, whatever it is, and you're unhealthy, it limits how far you can go.
Mm.
Because if I get up and preach, and I preach hard, so I'm one of them hard preachers. I preach hard. And so if I do that every Sunday, and then I'm so exhausted and drained and beat up after I preach because
Uh,
I'm out of shape,
right.
then here's a problem. Then I don't have time. I don't have any strength to get to my family. I don't
Mhm.
have any strength to get anything else, because my body's not in shape. And I preached a hard 45 minutes, and now I have nothing else to give. And that becomes an issue for a lot of preachers, because we always want to give our best to the church, but we don't give our best to our family. And
Right.
sometimes that boils down to just how we are physically. I just don't
Mhm.
have enough more. I don't have enough strength to give anything else. And that becomes an issue that I think has to be corrected even.
I want to move the conversation to something that has gotten into the news recently. It's the subject of critical race theory, and some of our listeners may or may not know what that is. And just to kind of give you a little bit of a background to it, critical race theory originated in the mid 1970s. It was the writings of several American legal scholars, including the names of Derek Bell, Alan Freeman, Kimberly Crenshaw, Richard Delgado, and many others. But they were talking about how in the legal system there was a lot of racism and prejudice, and they developed this concept called critical race theory. And in developing it, there were several tenets to it, but I'll just name a couple of them. One is that racism is permanent in society. Secondly, they talked about intersectionality and how that plays in the role of prejudice. And then there was another tenet of it where they talked about, counter storytelling. I'll use that one. And that's where it's important to tell your own stories, because if you don't tell your stories, other people will define you and tell your story. So critical race theory has been around since the mid 1970s. But in recent months, started to get into the fabric of America. It started to move outside of the academic world, which is your colleges and your universities. And now it has moved into the education realm. Many governors around the country are signing legislation banning critical race theories to be taught to high school students or in the education community, because they feel that anytime you're talking about racism and how it started, which is really American history, but it seems to starting to impact whites in the country, that they feel that is being oppressive to them and racist towards them. But when in fact, it's just trying to identify maybe some of the origins and how people were treated over history, and certain trying to bring out certain everyday systematic processes. But anyway, so not only has the governors have banned it at the education level, and they don't want teachers to teach it, or they could be fined or subject to some type of penalty, but it also has reached the religious community. Back in December, it was the Southern Baptist Conference denounced critical race theory. They don't want it to be taught, and a lot of things they say it goes against, biblical scripture. I just wanted to ask you just your thoughts about it, and what you would like to share, especially concerning from the spiritual aspect of critical race theory. Is it something that you might believe that it should be taught, it should be spoken about, and it shouldn't be condemned, but it should be heard? So what are your thoughts about critical race theory in the context of religion?
Yeah. So here's the thing. When it comes to understanding race in general and the differences in race, we have to know this, that the critical race theory, one of the tenets you talked about, that racism is a permanent thing. But here's the thing, that even if you look from a biblical standpoint, there has always been, from Genesis, there's been some sort of prejudice, racism, some sort of issue with
Oppression.
cultures clashing, oppression.
Yeah.
Something has happened. And so it goes all the way from the Old Testament to the New Testament, from the Jews and how they looked at the Samaritans to, so many different aspects that are right there in scripture that we see. I think that as long as you have people, there's going to be some type of prejudice. There's going to be some type of, there's race. And I know people say this, I don't see color. It's not true.
Right.
You can't not see color. There are obvious differences between the cultures.
Sure.
And those differences are there. And some people will never be able to get over that and understand that. So I think the importance of being able to, even from a biblical standpoint, or from a religious or church standpoint, we have to have these conversations. Sunday mornings are the most segregated times of the week. Sunday morning. And
11 a.m. Martin Luther King says.
Yeah. And we even have what we classify as the Black church, the white church, the Hispanic, the whatever. We classify every church as based on their color almost.
Right.
And so I think conversations of really understanding how do people of color see the world? We need to have that conversation. How do people that are Caucasian, how do they see the world? And once we have those conversations, I believe then we can start moving forward. But if we eliminate the ability to have the conversation, then we're going to eliminate the ability to move forward. That's when we're going to start having problems. We have to face the fact that we have history, and that the history is not the greatest history in the world between races and racial relations. I was on in a group talking about the police brutality, and the question was how do we reconcile people of color and police? And my answer was this: you can't reconcile what was never there. You have to start from a place of creating something new. There was never good relationship between people of color and law enforcement. There was never good. We go back to the 70s, we go back to the 60s, we go back even further, and it's just never good. So we can't talk about reconciliation until we talk about the problem, build on a solution from the problem. Because if we're trying to make something great again that was never great, well, it will never see anything move forward. And I think that's the importance of being able to say, let's continue with this critical race theory from the perspective of, we need to know, how can we build from here? This is the history. This is the situation. This is where we are. How do we go from here? Our governor right here in Oklahoma banned the teaching of critical race theory. And to my surprise, there were a lot of people that that denounced his bill that he presented and signed. Actually, even the school board here in Oklahoma denounced that bill. And so, because I think people know, on one level, people know that we have to have these conversations. There is a group of people that want to deny it and say, let's not even talk about it. Well, you can't not talk about it. We have to talk about it so we can move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think you could have said it any more plain, that you have to have the conversations about it in order to settle it. And then when you said, how can you reconcile a relationship that you never had? I mean, like, you're right. There's the assumption that the Black community and police have all that in the past had a relationship. Now we need to reconcile that. But it has always been a relationship of oppression and abuse, because that's where the power lies. And we have a long way to go. I don't think that these decisions to not want to talk about it, to denounce it, to not be true about American history is going to get us where we need to go. And so I'm just so glad that I heard your comments on that. Here's a question that I want to ask you. And I mean, Pastor, you have done so many great things for people. You've accomplished a lot. But if I was to ask you, is there anything where you may have a regret of something you didn't complete, something you didn't accomplish? What would that be? Something that you said, man, if I had to do that over again, not only would I see it different, but I know how to win it now.
Yeah. Oh, without question, I would probably say education.
Okay.
Which now I'm correcting that. I'm actually in a program I'm getting a master's and a doctorate simultaneously. It's kind of crazy right now.
Go for it.
Yeah. But originally, if I had known what I know now about who God was creating me to be, if I had known that in high school, I would have done that whole situation different. So my high school story, you've heard that, but my senior year of high school, I messed around throughout all high school, all 4 years. I messed around throughout 4 years, and really they just kind of let me get through. I was kind of popular in the music area, doing in the music department, ran track, and they just kind of let me skate through. And I found out my senior year of high school. Senior year of high school, I'm in line at the desk. You know about the desk.
I know about the desk.
At the desk, trying to figure out what was going on. And my counselor looks at me and said, yeah, you're not graduating. Found out the week of graduation that I wasn't graduating. And from that point, being stuck, I was stuck at that desk, stuck feeling like failures, feeling like I didn't have anything to offer the world, until I heard Dr. Miles Monroe. He said, yes, Dr. Miles Monroe, when he said, the greatest tragedy of life is not death. The greatest tragedy of life is life without purpose. And when he said that, that's when it just clicked in me that the issue for my life was I needed to find my purpose. And that's when I became irrationally passionate about finding purpose. And so I began to live out my purpose. But the thing, when you go back to talking about regrets, but I was like, man, if I had known then, now I'm 44 doing the education thing. If I had known in my 20s, I would have knocked all that out and been, so much further along just by, knowing what I was going to have to go into, the things I was called to, the people I would have to, be around. So that would be one of the things that I would say. I ended up, after high school, I got a GED, And I always tell people I went from a GED to a global world changer.
Wow.
And so it's been a blessing. But now I'm getting back, and I say, you know what, I got to get back into school. And God just showed me all kinds of favor by taking the experiences I've had through life. And I enrolled it's a Christian school that takes life experience. And they said, based on the experience, you have earned a bachelor's, so we
Right.
can put you in a master's program. And
Wow.
I said, well, what about the doctorate? And they's like, well, we can just roll it right over to the doctorate program.
There
I'm
you
like, let's
go.
go.
Uh-huh.
So we're doing that now. But that's it, man.
Well, that's a great story. And you are an inspiring individual. You have listen, here's what I like about when you quoted Dr. Miles Monroe, discovering your purpose, basically, is what he was saying.
Mhm.
And I see that in you. I see that you are a person of purpose. And not only are you found your own purpose, but you're helping others to find their purpose and to
Yeah.
step up to the next level and to be great in God. As you say, go next, you're next, you're next in line, but you got to go after it, and you got to go get it. And I'm just so excited that you took the time to join us on the show today. We've had an outstanding conversation. Give us some of your social media information so we can contact you. And then, of course, give us the name of the church and the link so people can join you this coming Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, social media, you can connect with me, Torrey.Montgomery. That's on every social media handle, Instagram, Facebook. Mainly Instagram and Facebook is where you can find me as far as social media, those two. Website at gonextglobal.com is the website. And here in the next few weeks, it'll have all the information on the new book and the new things that's coming out with that. So gonextglobal.com. As far as for the church, so like I said, I'm in transition right now. So you can actually go to the Place of Faith on social media, Place of Faith, Oklahoma City. I'll be preaching this Sunday. The Place of Faith, that's where we are transitioning into right now. So we would love for you to join us online. We'll have an incredible time, empowering word. You would be blessed majorly by coming on. So that's it right there.
Well, Pastor Torrey Montgomery, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. Again, you have inspired us, you have uplifted us, and you have motivated us. And as I say to all of my guests that come on the show, you have gone beyond the culture, and I thank you for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to come on. I appreciate it. Had a great time.
All right, bro. You take care.
All right, you as well.
All right, bye-bye.
God bless.
Bye-bye. Now, if you want to continue to hear inspiring interviews like the one you heard today, I want you to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. Also, rate the show and please leave a comment. I would also love it if you would share this podcast with your friends to let them know that we're on. Finally, please go to our website at www.beyondtheculturepodcast.com, or you can email me at beyondtheculturepodcast@gmail.com. On the website, you can subscribe to the show and connect with me by leaving your email address. I'd love to hear from you. This is your host, Dr. David Walker, and we'll talk again on Beyond the Culture. Take care.